Okay. You know how if you arrive early to Journal Conference, they like put weird made for TV reenactments in the Bible on, or like the last episode of the spoken word on while they wait for people to arrive. We're going to do that a little bit here. We're going to show you a video of an early interview with today's guest by none other than Evil Apostate while I go get some coffee. And so this is just a little preview. The show has not started yet, but enjoy Evil Apostate discovering the Glass Looker at Sunstone 2019. Here we go.
Hello, Internet. It is I, Evil Apostate, streaming to you live from the Sunstone Symposium in beautiful Sandy, Utah. Now, all you other evil apostates out there, you will know that the brethren long ago warned you from going to the symposia and having Bible scripture study and church history study in your house all by yourself, because you might come to conclusions that are outside of, the official righteous way of thinking things. Well, when you become evil apostate, one of the things that you do is you join organizations like Sunstone and start to think for yourself and see that there are other ways of being the Mormon. See, right up there it says more than one way to Mormon. So you come to symposia, you read articles, you meet peoples, and it gives you a new way of looking at things. And one of the things that I have found that is really, really cool is a new artist person doing a project that I think is really, really cool, and I want you to meet him. His name is Mark Elwood, and he's here also at Sunstone. How are you doing today, Mark?
Pretty great. Yeah.
Yes, you are evil apostate too, yes?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Well, you don't have to be. I mean, you're here at the symposium, so I assume that is what you are. So tell us a little bit about what your project is, what you're doing.
Well, so I've been working for a while now on a graphic novel.
Yes.
Scott Joseph Smith.
Ooh.
And it's the early treasure digging adventures. I've been compiling all the different documents that I can into a linear narrative. And I found that it's making a fantastic tale.
So you are making story of Joseph Smith as the treasure digger.
That's right. Okay.
But that's, well, hold on. That used to be evil apostate thing, but now I'm pretty sure that's like part of the party line. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You don't even have to be apostate to know this, yes?
True. And I try to do a middle line kind of, so if you want to read it as a believer, it should be okay.
Yeah.
But it might, make you a little uncomfortable at times. But yeah,
But that's okay though, because the church, they released the essay, and in the essay it said that he was the treasure digger, yes?
Yes.
So you're just making like a cartoon of the essay or what?
Yeah, it's a graphic novel, so it's a book, a comic book.
You can show us?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go check it out. All right, so, the viewers here, they can see what the Sunstone is like. Right now, we are in some sort of convention center and stuff, and
panel, so
yes, there are people talking about the things in the various rooms, and we're just, we're the bad boys out in the hallway doing the things, because when you're evil apostate, you don't conform to anything. Anywhere you go, you're the bad boy.
Sure, you're waiting in the foyers, right?
Oh yes, that's right. You get the best discussions in the foyers with the dads that like pinch the babies so that they can get out of class. I remember doing that. That was great. All right, so here we go. We are walking around. You can find like Mormon nerds of every flavor here. You got the fundamentalist nerds, you got the artsy nerds, yeah, you got the history nerds, and apparently here we got like creative cartoon nerd guy.
Yeah, so...
All right, hold on, I'm going to fix camera. All right, oh wow, this is really cool. Like, show me what you got.
All right, so this is for sale today. I have a prologue, but we've also got some kind of like pages here. You can look at what it looks like. I've got a proof copy as well that goes through a few chapters of Joseph Smith.
Hold on, this looks really cool. Okay, so you're starting like from when he was a small child?
No, I'm starting when he's younger though, like a teenager.
Yes.
And he's his first encounters with seer stones.
Oh wow! Oh,
and
hold
so
on.
Here we have Lumen Walters, and the very first dig we're going to look at in this storyline is is about the necromancer, Lumen Walters, and basically following Willard Chase's account here.
Hold on, where did you get all these magical symbols? That's not like from the temple, is it?
No. So this is from the Magus. These are 2 different pages out of the book, but you'll also notice that a lot of these symbols are things that are on like Joseph's Jupiter talisman.
Wait, so Joseph, like, how do we know Joseph had this stuff, like the magic stuff?
Well, you know, off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and look, but I believe it was in his possession when he died, and Vitamin eventually sold it to somebody who I can't recall at the time.
So are you making up this stuff, or do you get like real history that you're putting in this book? Like, can I trust what's in this book?
Well, okay, so these are real tales. They may not have happened. They are things that people said happened. So, for instance, this particular dig is Abner Cole, you know, and he's pretty antagonistic, but I try to source where I got everything. Lorenzo Saunders also contributed to this particular thing, and he's a friend. I would consider him mostly a friendly source.
So you're putting in like sources and stuff, like the D. Michael Quinn? Like, is there like another box back here for all the references, like the D. Michael Quinn does? You know, like 70% of the book is references?
Well, there is a lot of that, but that's all at home right now. I got books and a lot of sources. And then at the end, I do put in, I will have like this note section of where things come from, but...
So if we're interested in finding the background, then we can go to like the sources that you went to, and we can find out where they came from.
The goal, like, I just think these stories are so great in Mormonism, and they, you know, I don't want to be lost. And some people have heard of them, so, you know, whether you're a believer or not, they're just great, unique Mormon stories. So yeah, it's hard to know.
That's really cool. Like, you got all kinds of really cool art here. Like, well, hold on. This looks like satanic. What is this stuff?
Okay, so
this looks. I don't know if I can trust this. It looks like it comes from the bad place.
Yes. Okay, so this here is 1823. I guess is that what it was? The first encounter with the angel or spirit, and
yes,
sort of combining some of the Willard Chase stories. And he, you know, was a little man with a long beard. And then this is 1827 retrieval of the plates. And this actually is interesting because, you know, obviously I'm using artistic interpretation of what these things look like, but there's demons on the hill that night, and that comes from friendly sources. Some of them are not, but when I combine them all into one story, we get thousands of demons on the hill, and then later Brigham Young upped it to millions of demons.
So if you have story of like Joseph or some of his friends saying, hey, you know that time when Joseph got the plates and there were a bunch of demons everywhere, and you're just like, hey, what if I drew that with like the type of artistic integrity and interpretation that you might find in a comic book, and then so you can like really show what it would look like in the minds of the people who were at the time.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
You're stating it very well.
That is really cool. Now, what do you got here? Also on the table, you got the gold plates.
Yeah. So this is a project I'm working on. I'm trying to just do different plates and things.
Wait, I heard of the multiple visions. Is this like multiple plates? What is this? Why are there more than the one?
So what we have here is the brass plates that my version of it. There's no scale reference or anything. Just obviously Nephi carried it himself. So
this is the one he cut off the head so he could get the plates. That's the one.
Yeah, and a lot of apologists and folks, you know, speculate it was an Egyptian or not Hebrew.
Oh, you got the. What is this? Is this Demotic or the ornate Egyptian?
No, it's the first one. I forgot the name of it because
I can't believe I said that. I don't even know what I'm talking about. All right.
They would usually write their scriptures and stuff, even in the later periods, in this more sacred writing.
The priestly writing.
Yes,
very good.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. What is this?
This is Reformed Egyptian gold plates that Joseph, the final kind of scale that Joseph Smith talked about, and then this is more of the same gold plates, but the scale that some of the other witnesses, Martin Harris in particular, talked about silver rings instead.
So everything here is based on what witnesses actually said.
Yeah.
Joseph said.
Yes.
That's totally cool.
Yeah, or like what Martin Harris might have said. So then we have here, this is a really unusual one, but I have to look, I have a cheat sheet here that tells me the name of it. But
Wait, these are plates too? Or this is a book?
It's a record anyway. It's called The Record of the Wickedness and the Secret Combinations, the Sins and Abominations of the People of the World since Adam.
Wait, they're talking about evil apostates?
Yes, they are.
They got all my actions in there?
This is probably like a hard drive, I'm guessing.
Oh.
Got a lot of stuff. And I imagine the first...
Delete the browser history.
Imagine the first thing recorded in here is like Cain and Abel, and then, you know, unless there's something a little less that Adam got mad about.
They probably have in there the time when I was like, you know, I went to the museum with my family on Sunday, and that was very bad, and I felt guilty. It's probably in that book. What did you? That was a long name.
Yeah.
I think they got the same PR people that Russell Nelson has in telling the name. Like, what do you call it? Like.
So for short, I refer to it as the naughty plate.
Oh, that's a lot easier. Okay, very good. All right. Okay. All right. Well, dude, what, you know, if we really like this project and we really want to see it come to pass, like, what can we do? Because I really want to support this. This is really cool.
Yeah, so I'm going as fast as I can, but I'm a single artist right now. I've got some helpers with the history and stuff.
Wait, you're single?
No.
Wait, there was a lady around here earlier. She had a little kid. I'm going to tell her you're telling people you're single.
No, that's another sin that gets recorded.
Oh, it's in the book.
No, so I meant I'm the only artist working on this project currently.
Oh, okay. That makes much better. Okay.
Another...
Sorry, Erin. You don't have to spank him. That's good. All right.
So I would like to hire like a colorist or something. So that's my goal. I'm making this for me anyway, but if I want to get it done faster, I'm trying to make some money to hire a second person.
Well, I totally want to support you. Where can I go online to, like, you know, sign up to give you money every month? Because I'm not giving money to the church anymore, so I got to give money to the good stuff.
So I did Patreon. I have a Patreon available now. It's the Glass Looker.
Okay, Patreon, the Glass Looker. Oh, that's what the cover is going to look like?
Yes. And,
that's really cool.
What we have here, I don't know if people get this or not, but this is the hat he's looking down in. We've got the blue light that's sort of magical.
Oh, the magic light.
Yellow or warmer light is going to be sort of the inspiration, the godly inspiration he's going to receive later. So this is the beginning of his journey, you know, and...
I'm totally down with this. Like, I really want to... Okay, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to pay, like, you got, like, tiers so that I can get, like, behind-the-scenes stuff on the Patreon?
I do a lot of maps and things and research, and some of that stuff is going to be available online.
Oh, that's totally cool. I want to hang that up in my room and stuff.
Yeah, and but also early subscribers, if you're at a certain tier, you'll be able to get like a proof copy of some, you know, as I publish each time.
Oh, that is totally amazing, man. All right, well, okay, everybody. So if you want to support it, go to Patreon, do the Glass Looker, you know, hide it from your family because it means you're evil apostate, and then, you know, we'll see what it comes out with. Like, last year you were here and you had some stuff, but now you got like a crap ton of stuff, so that's really good. All right, Mark Elwood, you keep it up. You're doing great. Everybody else, you know, stay evil, stay apostate, and we talk to you later from Sunstone.
Goodbye.
I can't believe Mark Elwood looks so young and fresh-faced. Anyway, today we're going to talk again with Mark Elwood on talk and things and stuff. So here you go.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Talk on Things and Stuff. I hope you've enjoyed our little preview. We're not going to delay too much more other than trying to remind Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm on the air. You need to calm down, okay? Just simmer down. And we're going to say hello once again to Mark Elwood. Mark, how's it going?
Great. It was great to see that video again.
Well, you know, before we get into this project, I think it would be fun to kind of review a little bit of the history that we have, because I feel like I discovered a gem in the rough. It was 2017, and Sunstone was like, "Hey, come down to Nauvoo, and you can, sleep where Joseph and Emma slept, and you can poop where Joseph and Emma pooped." And so I was like, "Hey, I want to go to Nauvoo and see all this history stuff." And so I went down there, and there's an eclectic group of people there, among whom was this guy who was there with his wife and his kiddo, and he was like, "Hey, everybody, I'm an artist,
like that.
And I have." There was no beard, there was no Jesus hair. He was a young artist. Like, I have a dream, and I quit my high-paying job with a military-industrial complex so that I could come and be an artist. Tell me a little bit about what brought you to that Nauvoo trip.
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I don't even remember how we ended up. I guess I had gone to the Kirtland Nauvoo before that, just by myself. I think it might have been first, and then I thought that was pretty cool.
The church history sites at Kirtland?
Yeah, and Sunstone had done one there, and I think I went on my own, and I just thought it was kind of cool. I'd never really been interested in history before. Like, I just kind of thought it was like Doctrine and Covenants, like that's Mormon history. Which is kind of dry. So Kirtland, I started hearing some pretty cool stories there. And I think that was before, but in any case, ended up at Nauvoo with Aaron and my son Anders, who's 6 now, but at the time I don't know how old he would have been. I'm very bad at dates and math. Any case, like I met you, and I don't know if I had a car because Aaron was driving around with Anders. Probably to like the winery or something.
Yeah.
There in Nauvoo. I don't know if people know that, but there's like some German group that took over Nauvoo after the Saints left, and they built a bunch of wineries, I think, distilleries. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Well,
let's see. I think like at the snapshot of this project in 2019 was, 2017 was what? Like, what did this project look like at that time?
I would say I had my bag, and I think we were in the car, and I pulled out like 12 pages, of draft pages, and me and you were kind of bouncing ideas off each other, and you were talking a lot about Edward Kelly and John Dee and how cool that was, and that was very cool. And I was like,
fascination for me.
Yeah, it's still very cool. And I was like, I'm thinking of doing this thing where I'm going to maybe try to draw some of these treasure digging stories. And I think I was talking to you about starting with pirates and Porter Rockwell and Joseph Smith knowing each other and stuff like that. But it was only like 12 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of being in Nauvoo and hearing stories from the people that Sunstone brought there, and just kind of imagining what it was like to be there and to be filled with kind of the cultural environment of the times. For me, a lot of my introduction to it was John Dee and Edward Kelly, just because I had stumbled across some things that found some parallels in this notion of Christian mysticism. That was it kind of blew me out of the water, because I had never, you always hear growing up in America, there's like witchcraft and Satanism, and then there's like Christianity. And you never have this idea that there was a time in history where people accepted as normal the idea that there were angels and demons, and these inhabited a spiritual realm that coexisted with us, and that you could have the figures of God and of Christ and of Michael the Archangel, and all of these biblical figures exist at the same time as these demons, and that people would interact with them, and that was just completely normal. It was just part of how people conceptualize spiritualism. And so, it's easy for us to look back at Joseph Smith and his family and some of the treasure digging stuff and maybe say, oh, look, these are a bunch of they're into the occult. And I think even some of the early 80s anti-Mormon stuff, like the Ed Decker stuff, kind of took that approach. Oh, look at them. They're dealing with satanic occult stuff. They're evil. And your project is starting from a completely different place. It's saying, no, let's go back in time. Let's see what the wider view appeared at that time, and then try to bring a knowledge of that to people through this medium of the graphic novel, which I think is such a brilliant way to do that. Tell me a little bit about where you, I guess, how did you just like, hey, I'm going to start a graphic novel. I have no prior experience in this, or do you have some experience in bringing things to light through the medium of art?
Right. So I do, I went to art school. I did a lot of concept art in art school, and that's really kind of where I'm stronger than drawing I guess drawing props and items and things like that. But I also did majored in animation, so storytelling kind of came in there. But really, I ended up kind of doing a sidetrack, and my, after graduating, I went to aerospace art, I guess, or space art, really. And what happened was I worked for an aerospace company for about 10 years, kind of as their lead artist. And we were a small firm and everything, but the way it worked was that they would give me these requirements that I would have to be creative within. And that's where it kind of carries over into my book, is that, I had to not make up too much stuff, try to stay to the strict kind of requirements, and make sure, you can't just make up wings like on the airplane how you want them to look because it's cool. Although I did try a few times. But generally you have to, follow these rules of aerodynamics and things like that. So I was the artist. I didn't know any of that stuff, but the engineers would give me all the information and I would create the art. So with the glass looker, I'll pull up a historical document and I will try to visualize it and try to get the history behind the document as much as I can, and try to create something that kind of follows the document. And I hope that's successful. It's at least really fun to try to do.
Oh, I think that's brilliant, actually, that paradigm where, as a space illustrator, you still have to be confined to the laws of physics, but then take that paradigm over into this, and you have to shape your story and what you depict according to the historical record. And I think that's the thing where, I dabble with a lot of historians. We've done a few outings, you and I, together with some of these historians like Dan Vogel and everything. And there's always this desire to stay true to the history, to not embellish, to take as little or no artistic license that would not be justified. And so there's always the temptation, I think, anytime anyone engages in a project like this of, hey, how can we sex it up? How can we make it even more salacious than it already is? How do you resist that temptation? Did you ever go down that road, or what was your ethic in putting this project together?
Well, I definitely, I'm no saint when it comes to that, because I love to picture these things in, as cool as I can make them. But I guess, if there's a, I do try to kind of follow the document as much as possible, but I'm also able to be a little less restrictive than like a documentary historian, where I am not so much worried about whether or not the story actually took place. I'm more interested in the story itself, for instance.
Okay.
So if someone is telling the story and they think that it was Joseph Smith, they may have the dates wrong. That's the first thing people forget anyway. So for me, I know it probably makes a lot of the historians kind of like shudder, but I'll be like, yeah, this is a cool story. I'm going to go ahead and illustrate it, And so there are some stories like that I'm going to cover that I think other people have shied away from in the past for good reason. Like, there's definitely problematic sources, but these are stories that honestly are still being told, today, like in the area. So I just think that they are really awesome, and unfortunately we don't know them as what we were brought up on. So right. I think I would just want to know more stories about the founder of my religion, even if they're myths.
So
yeah, it reminds me a little bit of that movie Big Fish, where you have the protagonist that's going through these different stories and experiencing them as they were told, and they build the story of his father and all the tall tale stories that he has. But in this case, you're going through the historical record. You're finding every account that has anything to do with Joseph Smith or the Smith family, or even some of the magical stories that built the world that they inhabited, and then just depicting those in graphic form, as though they're saying. So if, Brigham Young said that there were a bunch of demons on the mountain, then you draw the demons on the mountain. And so that's where your artistic license comes in, but it's really just to bring those stories to life in visual form. And I think that paradigm is brilliant, and I'm so excited to see it come to life. Now,
thank you.
Let's see. I want to be able to show, by way of preview, just a few images from what you have before we dive a little bit into your studio, because I'm getting all these little hints of stuff in the background there that look very fascinating. So let me see if I can bring up our, let's see, we have a little bit of a preview here. So you sent me a proof, which is not yet complete in the form that you sent me, but we are approaching the time where people who have pre-ordered will be actually receiving a physical copy of the first chapter or the first issue of this series. So tell me a little bit about what people are going to receive when they get this in physical form. This is just a series of thumbnails of the type of stories that you're going to see.
Right. So they will receive a book. I don't know if people can see me at the moment, but I have a copy here. But in any case,
yeah, we can see you. Here you go. Okay. Yeah. So that's the physical book.
Right. So it's volume 1. And yeah, it's basically this is a unique volume because I really started my research and storytelling with what is going to become volume 2. So that's pretty fleshed out, actually. But I realized that I needed to go back and hit some of these earlier these are the stories that are really not very fleshed out. And so I had to be very careful. But there's some just some interesting accounts where I wanted to kind of show Joseph really developing his or finding his first seer stone. And I feel like there was some stories that had to do with dowsing. I don't know if you can see my right there, like my little dowsing rod.
Oh, okay. So you're pointing to a upside down Y-shaped rod that's on the door frame above your head.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And there's another smaller one you can't really see there, but that's my son's. He also was dowsing with me that day. So in any case, I wanted to try to collect some of those stories. I went with I think Michael Quinn might have been the one that says Joseph goes from the rod to his first stone, then to his second stone. A kind of progressive thing, like more powerful tools eventually do Urim and Thummim. And so I was kind of following that as just kind of a rough storyline.
So let's take that brief chapter and just give people an example of the type of detail and background that you provide. So if we go to this section, chapter 5, where it's titled The Water Witch, and each chapter seems to start out with almost like an artistic poster type of graphic representation. And then you develop a narrative. And here we've got, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. And of course, I've lost the chapter. Hold on, I'll find it again. But, okay, come on. Tiny. Okay, here we go, chapter 5. So you've got these, these frames where there's a story, Joseph Smith, you can see him start to use the skill, and then there's some sort of narrative happening there. And, we're not going to give away the farm, but then at the end of the chapter, you're giving some sort of historical context and quotes. So how did you come up with this structure, and what is your intention in terms of doing this?
Yeah, So I came up with this idea of like basically, yeah, we have a bit of narrative and then a resource, just clipping out of, wherever it's found. In this case, most of those, I think all those are in Dan Vogel's Early Mormon Documents books. And I think most people, a lot of people aren't going to go grab that book off the shelf, but I wanted people to at least know where I was getting the information and where I made up the details from. And so you can kind of fact check me, I guess. And then, so they're kind of vignettes. I'll just do that, little story and then the resource. And they're generally in some kind of chronological order, but there's a lot of wiggle room there, especially with these earlier stories. And that story in particular is kind of cool because I went there on foot. I was trying to track that one down for a while. And I actually have had people help me too. I should mention this. Like there's a guy named Nathan Hadfield, and he was out there and he kind of, was directing him. I'd be like, go take a photo of this, property. I need to, see what it looks like. And I was really trying to find this particular treasure dig site because most of the time I'll follow, most of those treasure digs are right here. Location of Joseph Smith's early treasure quest and by Dan Vogel. It's a dialogue article. It's kind of where it all started for me. But there's a few
So in the article, you can see the address or the geolocation and then zoom in on Google Maps.
Yeah, Dan Vogel did an awesome amount of work where he figured out like the lot numbers, the location in each city. And, this is sort of just, like his trip, actually, he did the same thing, went out there and kind of tried to find these locations, and others have done it as well. But my wife and I drove all over looking for these things. It was a really fun trip. And anyway, and going back to that, the treasure mound one, or the Indian mound that Joseph was supposed to have dug into, it was really cool because I got the town historian and the county historian to go with me. We just tromped off through the woods, and I kind of pulled in some of those details into the story because it was very similar. Like a guy in a wheelbarrow came riding out to check on us. We're in this cornfield, and we assured him we had, permission from the owners. And he's like, "Oh, I forgot what he said exactly, but then he did say, well, we don't know nothing about that. The mound or the ruins or fort or whatever." And so we went and looked for it, and there wasn't much. I mean, it was like some raised ground, and not much left, but it potentially could have been the location. And we were definitely on the right lot number. We were, in the site. But in any case, I try to go on location and get photos for kind of reference for drawing the area. So, yeah.
Well, in addition to the stories and the references, occasionally the book also includes maps.
Yeah.
How did you piece these together? Where did you get the data from this? Is it the same stuff that you're just now putting in a format where people can see all at once?
Yeah. So I have a massive kind of Google map where I track all this stuff. And these are locations, that are from sources like that Markle home right there. I mean, like I found the foundation for it out there, and the well that I drew is where the well is and stuff on the page where we start that story. Wow. So I try to be as accurate as I can. And then the location of the dig, it said it was within sight of the house, so we walked up the hill, kind of found the location where it probably was, looked at old maps. I'm always browsing, Library of Congress maps and stuff. And that's how I figured out that location. There's a lot of DeWitt Clinton. He kind of went through the area, and he talked a lot about the mounds down at Ovid and Romulus. There's a whole bunch of mounds in that area anyway that are left from the Native Americans. And so, yeah, that was just one of them.
Well, that is really cool. I think giving those tangible things that we could even go out and look at today to get a sense of that is, I don't know, it adds sort of just like an anchor point in our reality. So you can see that these stories, while there's a fanciful component to them, there were really people that lived in that area that inhabited that mythology and acted on it. And it has consequences that we're seeing today just in the form of the church itself.
Yeah, I love treasure digging tales because they are often fanciful, and a lot of times I think participants will turn their failure into entertainment, and to tell a good story. But there's still kind of like the truth that somewhere in there, and a lot of times the tales will include like geographic locations, sometimes dates, but again, the dates are not super reliable, but they'll often have the participants, what they were going for. And I try to track all that stuff, and I like to try to tie it to a geographic location. That's the funnest thing.
So who are some of the personalities that you've interacted with on the journey to bring this together? I know that you've rubbed shoulders with some of the historians, perhaps, that you took your first inspiration from.
Yeah. Let's see. I have met, Dan Vogel is kind of like my personal hero in a way because of all the work he's done. And I will say that, Making of a Prophet, that's kind of how it all started. I was reading that book and realized, and along with this locations of the treasure dig paper. Anyway, I was reading that book and keeping kind of a sketchbook as I was going. And I was like, this is kind of cool to visualize. Like, we should try to, anyway, and it kind of grew from there. Like, I was like, I need to, like, it's one thing to read these things, and not everybody's gonna do that. And so I can, to see it is sometimes pretty striking. So, let's see. So Dan Vogel, yes, very cool. And if you can, you should definitely read his books. And then Michael Quinn I met, but I think I offended him immediately because I told him here, let me show you. Hold on. I took his book. I took his Magical Worldview book and I just cut it in half. And yeah, and I was like, I don't know if you see it, but I ended up doing like, this is the footnotes here, and this is the actual book. And then actually, I think the footnotes is thicker. But anyway, but it was the only way you could read it. It was wonderful. I mean, this also, it's great. But that way I could have kind of like when you're studying your scriptures, you got your Book of Mormon and your Bible, and you can cross-reference or whatever. That's what I had.
Hold on, I have to see that. Hold them up at the same time. I want to see the thickness because everybody knows that Quinn's books are like more footnote than they are text. Okay,
so actually, no, yeah, this is the book on this side, and it's just I think it's just a hair thinner.
Okay,
and this is this is the footnote. Sorry.
Oh. And he got offended that you did that. That's terrible.
Well, no, not really. He was just kind of like. I don't think it was the first thing I should have said to him is all.
Oh, okay. Well, I know a lot of us have really relied on his work in the Magical Worldview book, and hearing him tell his story where he was first realizing that this magical stuff was part of church history. I think he relates a story where he was sitting down with somebody who was a church patriarch, descendant of Hiram Smith, and they were talking about something else. It may have been in the context of all of the aftermath of the Salamander letter, and he says, "Hey, do you want to see the family heirlooms?" And he when he relates the story, he's like, he doesn't understand what he's agreeing to, but he's like, "Yeah." And then they bring out several documents that we know as what is it? The Holiness to the Lord parchment, and several other parchments that have some of the symbology that you've incorporated in some of your illustrations. So if we can look at, I think it's one of the illustrations at the start of your book. There's this picture of Joseph holding the stone, and then there's a circle with several symbols around it. There's this little squiggly circular line and everything, and all of these are taken from sources that are either also included in some of those parchments that are part of the the family treasures, the family heirlooms of the Hiram Smith family that passed from patriarch to patriarch. But it can also be found in older mystic texts called grimoires that would have preceded Joseph Smith in that time.
That's right.
So, I only have like a superficial knowledge of this stuff, but it seems to me like you've dove headfirst into all of these things. Like, how far back did you go? What are some of the resources that you are drawing from?
Well, everything off camera is my messy stacks of like papers and things, which I'm not going to show you. But I do, yeah, no, I mean, like, there's so much stuff out there, and so many people have done a lot of work. And I will say, like, some of the best sources that I use are, Lucy's history, all of Dan Vogel's stuff, like the 5-volume set. Michael Marquardt. Michael Marquardt. He's got some stuff. There's some kind of more obscure things. Like, there's an article by J. Taylor Hollis, I think is his name, and he lived in the Susquehanna area and collected a lot of the folk tales about Joseph, like the walking on water stories, and anyway, and that's another great source for the stories. And there's the other surprising ones, like early church historian. I can't remember it right now, but it predates, Michael Quinn's book even, and he goes into a lot of depth in it. It's really good, and I should probably send a link to that. And then I don't know, like Rob Lauer, he sent me this cool play that he did, and again, this is like, the date on this is 1982, where and he published it at BYU, which is kind of cool. And it talks about Joseph during the silver mine dig. It's, creative writing, but a 3-act play kind of thing.
Drawing from the same stories.
So there's a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of stuff that's been done way before me. I'm just really actually my goal is for people to be interested in this stuff and kind of go find these books. But I think that the visual way I'm representing stuff can reach a different audience and hopefully get more people interested in these stories.
Well, I think a lot of people may not realize how split the church has been on just even the reality of these stories. We today kind of just accept, because in great measure the church has acknowledged and validated the idea that Joseph Smith and his family were involved in this mysticism. I found an article on newspapers.com that to me kind of gives the best little glimpse into the mindset of the conventional Mormon intelligentsia at the time. So if I shared this, let me see if I hit share, stop screen, share screen, and we'll go to Chrome tab, and we'll bring up this is a newspaper from October 1987.
Okay.
And the title is "Scholars Are Split on Mormon Mysticism." And if we zoom in, we can see this is in the wake of Michael D. Quinn publishing his book on Mormonism and the magical worldview. And it talks a little bit about his exhaustive search for answers to the questions posed by people who were bringing out this stuff, that in the wake of the White Salamander letter, and they mentioned Mark Hoffman. Now, one of the most respected church history authors and historians now is Bushman, and Bushman was around at the time, and he says, there's like a money quote in here. Quinn's project blossomed into a book after he discovered ample evidence to indicate that Smith was deeply immersed in folk culture that made participation in magic commonplace. But in advancing his hypothesis, the professor at church-owned BYU has drawn criticism from fellow Mormon scholars. This is when Quinn still worked at BYU. A great deal, and then there's a quote from Richard Bushman. A great deal of the evidence is very tenuous indeed. It's what would be called an exaggerated picture, said Richard L. Bushman, a history professor at the University of Delaware and author of Joseph Smith and the Beginning of Mormonism. Bushman said that Quinn was correct about the pervasiveness of magic in the early 19th century, but said that the author was unable to produce direct evidence proving Smith a wholehearted participant. And so you can see even at that era, somebody as well informed and well placed as Bushman and well respected had a great deal of skepticism that Joseph Smith was involved in this at all. And remember, that's at a time where the church had in its archives Joseph Smith's seer stone, but was denying it to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. I haven't seen that one. But,
so we go from that era to now where you are, where you can talk about these stories and even find faithful people interested in it.
No, it's true. There's been some really great stuff on the faithful side that's been published as well. So, Mark Ashurst McGee has a really cool thesis that he wrote called, Moroni as treasure, or as angel and treasure guardian. That's kind of cool. And there's I've had a little bit of interest on the side of the believers as well, because we're all trying to reinvent what it is now that even the essays came out and that the picture of the seer stone has been published. It's pretty wild. To me, so I will say, like, I've tracked almost like 35 treasure digs now, and we really only have Joseph who's admit to the silver mine, and maybe some tangential stuff, but the silver mine with Josiah stole, but then there's lots of other people, contemporaries that had said that they personally were digging with Joseph or under his direction. So I know a lot of the stories probably are told about Joseph after the fact, maybe because he's the most famous treasure seer in the area. You might have a little bit of that, but you also will have many, many stories that are not told, but are hinted at in various accounts. William Stafford, for instance, talks about, swords, candlesticks, different things he's mentioning that as kind of examples of what the Smiths believe they could find. And I have no story of them looking for a sword, so.
But we certainly have swords in the mythology and the story and even the narrative of the Book of Mormon that was produced from it. So it's in the air there.
And he could be implying that as well. But that's just an example, like, where we have lots of stories of different treasure that don't have an attached treasure tale, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I kind of think, some of these stories may not be about our Joseph Smith, or maybe exaggerated or something, but then there's stories we don't know. So I'm hoping that we might kind of average out. I don't know.
Well, in the times that I've delved into reading these accounts and seeing them, a lot of them just really blend together in terms of, okay, there's a silver dig, there's digging for stuff on some mound somewhere, and it's really hard to have a visual for it. And it's kind of like, the first time I read Lord of the Rings, there was like a mountain, they went through the mountain and everything. But after I watched the movie, suddenly if I read the book again, I've got all of this visualization that helps me place myself in the story and everything. Some people say that's bad because it confines you to one particular notion of it. But for me, in trying to understand and wanting to know what the world was like back then, something like a graphic novel that you are putting together, I think can really bring those stories to life and help people maybe see that there's a difference between the silver mine dig and a dig that they would have done for mounds and things like that. So I'm really glad that this project is now you have. Is that like a conspiracy wall that I saw there just a second ago? Because I have to see that.
Okay. All right. I hope no one screen grabs this. This is like kind of my. So, when you're writing a story, you kind of have to have like kind of a God view where you can kind of see everything at once when you need to. So this is sort of what I call it's my conspiracy wall. Yeah. So what I've got going on is down there. It's a map, really. There's the Finger Lakes up there.
Okay.
Oh gosh, sorry. Let's see if I can turn this camera. It's terrible, but it goes across my wall and a few other areas. But generally, we've got, this is the like Susquehanna area, and I try to track the different digs. And this is the order I stitched them together by following the yarn. A lot of these were happening, if they are happening at all, were happening simultaneous to each other. But I put them, the way I figure out the order is I use a lot of the stories from the court documents where, if whoever's the witness, Jonathan Thompson or Josiah Stoll, they'll be listing the different things that they were involved in. Both of those are friendly sources, and they'll put it in a certain order. So generally, I'll kind of follow that order. And yeah, I had kind of a process I did to kind of stitch these stories together into a linear story. So
I just want to get a picture of you like pointing at the wall and then like reaching out to the camera like that classic conspiracy theorist thing.
I'll do that for you later.
That is hilarious.
Not right now.
Okay. I can send that out as a teaser later. Well, okay, so you've got, I'm very fascinated by the idea that there's a bunch of stories that we're all really eager to hear about, but they will feature in the second episode or the second volume because there was this groundwork that you had to lay. And, when I was flipping through the preview, it struck me that like there's this story structure that they have in Indiana Jones movies and several other types of even James Bond movies where they start out with like some story or some event that happens before the actual action happens, and it's usually like a high interest, high excitement story, and you have that in the form of chapter 1, which you call a prologue. And I just want to see, let's see, we're going to see if we can step through that a little bit here because for me, this is going to be like just the thing. So we start out for Martin Harris, the believer, we've got the prologue and there's the skull and crossbones. So already we've got a sense that there's some pirate treasure involved here. We've got an image with the steering wheel of a pirate ship. There's so much detail in terms of like, you zoom in and you see, a shovel. Tell us a little bit about what we're
sure.
seeing.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this one because it is kind of like, whoa, wait, what? This is Joseph Smith. What are we talking about here? So what's going on is the legend of Captain Kidd is we're already starting off, and I hope this is kind of the point. Like Captain Kidd was not a super great pirate in reality. Like if you actually go through the history, he didn't really do that much. He tried to kind of claim innocence the whole way through, but the folklore around him like grew like crazy. And it's because he actually, in fact, did bury a little bit of treasure in Gardiner's Island, which was recovered. And because of that, and because they made an example of him back in England, the stories just blew up about him that he had made a pact with the devil. Near the top of the page, there is a Bible. And a lot of these stories are coming out of a song that was really popular. And so he buried his Bible to make a pact with the devil, his family Bible. If you scroll down some more, the background there, I try to just tie in all the different things that kind of tie it to Mormonism. One is the islands that are called the Comoros Islands. One of the cities there happens to be called Moroni. So we have Comora, Moroni. The ships there are two of his ships. You scroll down a bit more, the wheel kind of represents, well, here, first let's start the hub of the wheel. That's what he actually was executed for, I believe is his act of violence. He cracked his gunner, I think, cracked the head with a bucket, and that's what he was executed for. But if you look at the spokes of the wheel, I decided to kind of show the different treasure guardians that were told to, from all the different stories, right, and that were told to be the ones guarding his treasure. So starting on the left from kind of magic, or I mean, kind of more commonplace all the way to extremely magic. I can just kind of name them off, but there's, like a child, an old man. These were all people that were, executed or buried with the treasure to kind of create some sort of guardian, a virgin, a slave, a pirate, which is what I chose to illustrate in my story. And then sometimes it would be like some sort of more, this is where it gets more magical. We have like a glowing skeleton or a headless being that guards the treasure. A devil, there's all kinds of devils. And the last one that you can kind of see there peeking around is like a multi-headed demon. And then if you zoom all the way out, we have that phantom horse and the multi-headed demon that's protecting his treasure. Those were just two of my favorites. I decided to kind of put on the left and right to pull the whole piece together. Anyway, so I spent way too long on William Kidd, but I wanted to kind of understand like where all these treasure tales are coming from. And if you want to know, I decided I would try to track where are all these stories and why is Joseph Smith, like, according to contemporaries, interested in the guy. And, like, why do they think treasure was all the way up the Susquehanna, and it's generally because they dug up, people were just digging up the entire East coastline, looking for where he may have hidden more gold. So right at the beginning, I'm starting off with a story that, while it's a real tale, is fictional. It's a fantasy. So,
but these are the stories that would have shaped how people saw the whole concept of the potential for treasure, and maybe why the treasure is hard to get or the dangers involved.
And it's not the only. This is just one origin story for treasure. We'll encounter more as the story progresses, but obviously Native Americans, robbers, early settlers, Spanish, Revolutionary War, Revolutionary War, like soldiers, especially like Tories, hiding their loot so it wasn't recovered. And there's just lots of different ways the story originates. And then a lot of them are an ancient race that doesn't exist. So, yeah.
And it's so fascinating that it doesn't matter. The factuality of the story doesn't matter. All that matters is how the story was told at the time, and how that then informed the way that people who had this sense that all of these magical spirits and demons were real, and then what that belief would do to people who then encountered mediums who claimed to be able to interact with these spirits and could generate revenue and kind of exploit the belief of people to do it. And that is what is so fascinating about how that. So I love how the story begins, just setting the tone for that, because these stories were there, and you can even get a sense of the the fact that this person has died with this treasure, and now that is going to later play a role in the concept of the guardian spirit. And we see that in this pirate story and the magical tales there, and it seems so foreign. But when you step back and say, wait a second, the angel Moroni was a guardian spirit, and there was a golden treasure, being able to see those parallels really just opens up a whole new way of understanding the things that we kind of accepted as just like some sort of divine, godly thing, and don't realize that it's rooted in this, very commonplace folk magic and the stories surrounding it.
Yeah, that's right. And there's even, it's another folk tale, but there's a story that was told about, like, basically how Moroni gets killed right there, guarding the plates, and he becomes the guardian for it. So anyway, I may explore that.
Yeah. Okay, so this one sets up a lot of the background, first of the mythology and story that informed the magical worldview. And then it tells the story of Joseph Smith getting, because I understand he owned multiple seer stones.
Yeah. So the focus of this book really is, he realizes that's what he wants to do. He has some mentors in the form of Sally Chase and Lumen Walters, which you can see over there, kind of on. But he wants to do what Sally's doing or what Lumen's doing, and so he sets off on a quest to find his own seer stone. And historians disagree on what stone that is, but I've chosen to kind of follow the way that Vogel lays it out, with the white stone first and the brown stone second, the brown stone coming out of the chase well. And, it's sort of a legendary tale where he goes off. It's told from the Bainbridge courtroom. A guy named William Purple took some notes and relays the story in his reminiscence years later. So we've got some problems there already, but it's a story that he said was so fascinating, he just wants to repeat it, kind of, and that's what we get, is this really cool story where Joseph walks for all the way over to the coast of Lake Erie and finds his first stone. which unfortunately I believe the church has it and has not released a picture of it.
Yep, that's something that a lot of people may not realize, is that the church, yes, has shown us one of Joseph's seer stones, but there are multiple, and they still have that and any number of other artifacts that they've not yet disclosed to the public. So hopefully with things like this coming out and people raising their consciousness to be aware of it, then the church may feel that it's a little bit safer to bring those things out, particularly as you mentioned, when you were at Sunstone, there were people who would by all accounts be conventional believing Mormons who are just better informed about some of the history, who are absolutely captivated by the prospect of this project, particularly because you're not bent on depicting Joseph as an evildoer or some sort of sinister figure, in my understanding of it. You're just taking the stories as they were.
Yeah, so I try to make it where everybody gets mad at me, basically. Where I have, a believer could kind of read these and feel uncomfortable. This is how I like to say it. And a historian will probably get grumpy that I included certain stories. But yeah, so I tried, for instance, it'd be very easy to take my own personal approach and say, I don't know if I actually believe Joseph walked all the way to Lake Erie. He may have just gone out in the woods and so that he didn't have to avoid harvest or something. Like that might be, my story. And then he comes back to the rock and says he found it. But or another example is a lot of the treasure digging things. We have a lot of evidence, a lot of the tales where, other seers might have used someone who was in on it, so they'd all be out there digging, possibly drinking, possibly, it's all a little bit scary. I mean, you've been out in the woods at night, it's already a little freaky. And, you're talking about demons and things. And then all of a sudden there's someone that appears there in a sheet. You're going to, in the firelight, it's going to be pretty freaky. And so I'm not drawing it that way where there's somebody who's like faking them out. It's if it's a demon, I will draw a demon. And so I'm trying to just relay the story as told.
Right. It's kind of like what people would have conceptualized as they experienced it itself. I think that's a very appealing part of the whole project. You mentioned, because I remember when we were there in Sunstone 2017, there was one of the activities was like, hey, introduce yourself, and if you could sit down for dinner with one figure in church history, who would it be? And I was already vaguely familiar with Luman Walters, and the stories that I had heard about Luman Walters made him my choice for it, because I was trying to connect John Dee and Edward Kelly because a lot of what they did shaped the whole concept of Christian mysticism. When his journals were discovered and you saw that he was drawing from mysticism before him, and he developed a methodical way, really it was kind of Edward Kelly playing off of John Dee's very technical mind. He developed a technical way to articulate these things, and that then informed later grimoires that would go on to influence in the modern day things like Anton LaVey and all of the modern spiritualism. But it existed back in Joseph Smith's time, so he was very fascinating to me because the question is always, well, how did this stuff get from England to America? But there seemed to be very little information about Luman Walters. What did you find about that character, and does he play in your graphic novel?
Yeah, so he is super fascinating and definitely needs some more attention. I personally have been out to his gravesite there and in New York and kind of looked at the town that he ended up in there. I think it's called Gorham, if I remember right. Any case, he does feature in the novel. Like obviously at the beginning of the story, he comes in and out. He'll be back again in some other tales. There's one where this is told, I think, as sort of a faith-promoting story from back in the day when it was more acceptable to talk about magic. But Brigham Young, I think his account talks about, that they were in a tavern and Luman pointed at Joseph and said something to the effect that, I'm not going to be able to get the treasure that's in Cumorah, but that's the guy that can, And so I think, that's kind of a cool story. We also know that he's hired, and he's brought back into the town to try to get the plates from Joseph, along with the Chases and some others, the Beeman, some of the people that were friends and were digging with Joseph at the time. So he's back again trying to find the plates, but he's not able to. I think he converts briefly, which is pretty wild.
Really?
Yeah.
The thing that captivated me is that there's this sense that he may have been the person who was really the one that had trained in Europe in this culture of not only the nature of mysticism and the occult as it existed, but how to exploit people's belief. In very much the way that con artists teach the skill of their trade to other people. And then he came to America, brought that skill set, and was kind of like an itinerant mystic who may have taken Joseph Smith's father under his wing, and by extension, Joseph Smith himself taught him, hey, this is how you can play on the beliefs of other people and get money by hiring yourself, but then using these particular things. If you use Latin phrases, if you allude to spirits in this particular way, then it has this sense of legitimacy that people already believe if they already believe the Bible and some of the things that go along with it. And so it was him that conveyed a lot of this information that then informed how Joseph Smith's father and Joseph Smith himself conducted some of these early magical adventures. So that's what's so fascinating to me about what I've heard about it. So I'm very excited to see what you bring to it.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. So then Volume 1, people are asking, first of all, how can they order it?
So my website is theglasslooker.com. That's the name of, so theglasslooker.com is where you can find it to order it. And if you're curious,
all right, you can find a link for that in the description of this video. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to click there.
And yeah, I mean, I really hope people enjoy it, as much as I've enjoyed making it. And the name comes from the 1826 trial that took place in Bainbridge. It's apparently possibly even what Joseph might have referred to himself as in the transcript. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it's definitely what the reporter or the judge wrote down. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. It's a fascinating term that, goes right to what they have. I did some research trying to find other accounts of people who would have done similar things, both looking for people that would have conducted their activities by putting their head in a hat or using a stone. And there's a lot of different terms that you have to search for if you're going to do that, which may include glass looking or peepstone or peeping. Juggling is another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, scrying. And so there's just a bunch of different words for this. Now, when they sign up and they do a pre-order, do you have a time frame for when the physical copy will reach people's hands? Yeah,
so I do have I printed a bunch of proofs and stuff just for Sunstone, the last one I went to, but the final print run, because this had some unfinished stuff and some edits I want to do. I want to include a timeline because, that's one of the things I get feedback on is okay, where do these stories fit into where's Joseph's leg surgery and where's the first vision? So I'm going to include that to kind of show, but we'll get to some flashbacks in the next one as well, probably. That in any case, what was your question, Jonathan? Sorry, it was
okay. So when can people expect to get a copy in their hands?
Yeah, so I am printing I'm taking pre-orders until September 1st, and that's when I'll be launching the print. So my goal is for people to have it September 22nd. That's an important day in Mormonism. All
right. And so they'll have it in their hands if they want to give it as a Christmas gift, if they just want to get their hands on it themselves. There's enough time for all of that. And I want to make sure that we talk about your Patreon, because I made sure to jump on your Patreon as early as possible. And there are a lot of additional things that you made available early on as you were piecing your research together. Things like maps, there's this one image that you have of all of your different character sketches. So you haven't just like, it was like, oh, I'm going to put together a picture and you just start drawing it. The research that you did included like a character profile of all of these different figures that you have stories from. And you can find a lot of that. If people sign up now and they go for some of the higher Patreon access, will they have access to some of this early stuff that you've done?
Yeah. So my Patreon during the pandemic kind of was pretty sad because I either could work on my book or I could really focus on the Patreon. So I have a lot of backlog stuff I'm hoping to put up there, but the early patrons I have, like I owe them a lot because that's how I was able to do this. And this is kind of my job at this point. I do freelance aerospace art as well. But so I really appreciate the patron support that I do get. And I apologize if there's not enough content there, but I'm hoping that will change in the future with my son in school and as long as COVID doesn't make a rebound here.
No, that's totally fine. I was just happy. Anytime there was an update, it was always great to see what you were working on. And I was so excited to see any progress get made. And you did such a good job of giving little glimpses into everything.
Oh, thanks. Well,
so I will definitely endorse people checking out your Patreon, considering supporting this. If you sign up and support Mark through Patreon, what you're really doing is investing in this project coming to fruition in subsequent volumes where we can see more and more of these stories really fleshed out in a way that brings them to life. And I'm excited for that. So if we were going to say, what is the goal for the second volume that we would expect, to follow the first?
Okay. So my goal, I hate to put this on camera, but my goal is to try to keep the year like 200 years past for the year that I'm producing. So, we did 1821. That's out. Try to get 1822 out next year. So.
All right, you put it on camera. It has to be done. We're gonna hold you to it.
Dang it.
I want these to be taken as storyboards for some producer to say, let's take this and turn it into an HBO series and really flesh that out.
I don't care if someone rips me off and turns it into an HBO series. Do it.
Okay, you can't rip him. You have to get him involved in it. He's going to get an agent and lawyers and everything, but that would just be so fascinating. I know, because there's magic, there's sex, there's murder, there's intrigue, there's everything that makes an excellent series. We haven't gotten to the sex part yet because that's, when you get back into Nauvoo and everything. But
in my story, I'm trying to keep Joseph. I'm not planning to go into Nauvoo. It's going to end before that point. So he's still a little bit more likable, although he does deceive and use people generally.
All right. Well, Mark, it's been great to catch up with you, and I'm so glad you were able to show us a little bit about what you got going on. If you were going to close with one message to people who are interested in your work, what would it be?
It would be thank you to all the people that have helped me, and this has been a group project in a lot of ways. So I just super thrilled. Like obviously I'm using everybody's work before me, and I'm just illustrating it, and that's how I can contribute to the conversation. I'm super happy to do it, and I hope that people will find it fascinating as I do.
All right. Well, if you are interested by what you've seen here, please check out Mark Elwood's website at theglasslooker.com. Consider joining his Patreon and buy multiple copies of the book. Share it with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones, and get excited about this history, because it's really when you realize how vibrant and captivating and fascinating early Church Mormon history is, it kind of gives you a sense of pride in being a part of it. Even if you've left the church or anything, it's still just this rich cultural story that is, I just love. And finding someone like Mark who shares that love and is able to bring it to life in such a remarkable way has been, just a great experience for me. So, all right, Mark. Well, until next time, when we are hopeful to get an update on Volume 2, we will say goodbye from Talk on Things and Stuff. Take care.
All right. Thanks, John.